we believe we're on schedule. We believe we'll have a prototype version at the end of this week. So yeah, work is ongoing. As I mentioned last week, that is a very important piece of functionality, piece of tech for us. We believe it's very important for the company. And so that is absolutely being worked on. We have several dedicated developers on that. Yeah, but yeah, it's very cool. I can't wait to show everybody how it works. There's just a few bits of integration technology that we have to get finished on it to really be able to deploy it. Some of it's nitpicky stuff, session management type stuff. Some of it is um, figuring out how we connect to certain pieces of hardware on your computer in a way that makes sense from the web browser, things like that. So we're sorting that out. We have what we need. It's just a matter of putting it all together. Sidearm also asks, is there any way to increase the ability to create interactive objects for custom use cases? Being able to spray a fire extinguisher on a fire and put it out. Yeah, there's no reason you can't create that. Um, that is can be put together with all the tools we have now. There's a couple ways you could do that. Um, one is, well, there's some, one is you could have like physics raycaster on the extinguisher, and you point it in a direction and pull the trigger, and it raycasts out and figures out. And a raycast is just find what's in front of this, and if it finds an object that is a fire, it can send a message to that fire saying, "Hey, you just got sprayed on by this fire extinguisher that has these capabilities," and the fire can dial itself back accordingly, or something like that. You can also do kind of a more physics-based thing where, or a particle-based thing where you are you actually when you pull the trigger, it launches invisible projectiles or something out of the fire extinguisher, and if it hits a fire object, then it can interact with that fire object. So yeah, all that kind of stuff is totally possible in Unity with our existing tool set. Raycasting is just a standard Unity thing. All 3D engines raycasts. Uh, you know, if you're doing the physics route, then it would be like you would have a collider on the fire and a collider on the object coming out of the extinguisher, and if those two colliders met, then it'd be like, oh, these two colliders, or if they impact, I have a reaction to that impact, and that impact is to dial the fire back, reduce the particles until they're gone or whatever. That's one of the things, like, we'd love to have, more examples of code, and things like that up there where it's using things like Raycast. And I don't think we currently have a Raycast example on the GitHub or the wiki, and that is, that'd be a great example to put up there, something like that. Katronic Surf asks if there is an ETA for having a 2019-3 build. Currently using Gaia 2, and it doesn't work with anything less than 2019. We have an internal build of 2019. We actually started experimenting with 2019-3 last year. I built a custom experimental viewer for it for a specific test case, and it ended up where we had to iron out all of the bits and pieces that needed to be upgraded or changed or whatever from 2018 to 2019. So we actually have a functioning 2019-3 code base internally. In terms of ETA on that, there's a couple of issues there. One is that Unity themselves
Sorry, sorry,
hasn't
sorry.
gone to kind of a stable release pattern on 2019 yet. When they do,
Um,
2019-3 will get renamed to 2019-4 and probably
okay.
join their LTS program, their long-term
There's
stability
also like a new
releases.
seal and
And that's kind of
tidying
when
as
we
well
would
for
be
completing
looking
all
at,
those
okay, this
threads.
is Unity says this is a
Maybe
stability, a stable
eventually,
release
maybe
now.
dude.
They've moved it out of what they consider their development phase, and at that
Yeah, this is
point,
for a big stream.
it would be mostly a matter of us
Oh, for
setting up our
sure, for sure.
2019 processing
Dude,
architecture, which is
it's
not
tough,
a
brother.
huge deal,
Yo,
but it is a
Kendrick, thank you
task
for
that would have to be done
31 months.
so
Welcome back, my
that
dude. Crappy
anything you
Alien. Thank you for the 2
uploaded
months as well.
uh, got
Thank you, thank you.
um, got processed for 2019 and 2018 and that sort of thing. In terms
You sure
of
want to watch
our
Max? I did,
timeline,
bro.
um,
We're doing a
We
skeleton
actually
stream.
want
We
to do
turned on
that
auto mod chat
very
game.
soon after 2018
Oh,
goes live, just
okay.
because there's very little difference for 2017, 2018, and 2019 in terms of like they didn't drastically change the file structures, like the prefab formats. We've also done some work when we went to 2018, so that even if they do change prefab formats, we're kind of future proof against that. There's just not really a lot that it wasn't a huge fundamental code shift like going from 2017 to
Oh, and one
2018
more
was,
thing
which
as
they
well,
changed
chat. If
everything.
you donate
And
$25
2019 is just not that
to
big of a leap. But
the Bungie
2019,
Foundation
in addition to
for the
being
iPad
the
for
targeting
Kids,
for a lot of
iPad for
things
Kids
like Gaia
initiative,
2, brings
you can
some really
get this
cool little
here emerald.
beneficial stuff to it. One of
It's
those
at least
things is a
$25 though. You can donate
vastly
whatever you want.
improved garbage collection routine, and we're eager to get that in as absolutely
You
fast
get
as
this
possible.
emblem for
But it's
that.
an easy upgrade from 2018. If it's gone to LTS,
Horsey
then it
toy.
was relatively recently. Let's see, it is.
Yeah, it was
Oh, it
8th
did
of
just.
June, I think.
Yeah, so it just went to LTS last month. Then, so actually that's great. I hadn't seen that. So yeah,
Yeah, it's a
basically
Super
we'll be
Sicko
looking to make that
emblem.
jump then.
Oh,
Um, Almost
oh,
immediately after 2018 is kind of our target goal. Like as soon as 2018 is out the door,
yeah, it's right there. It's gonna be on
we
the
will
front page.
probably begin
Yeah, usually the front
building
page
more
slots.
internal
Like for today's stream,
2019
this is
viewers in order to
sponsored by
put
Twitch
through our
Prime.
newly expanded
But I
QA
was
team, and make sure that we actually have covered all the changes that have been made there. Like I said, we have already built functioning versions of it. We've updated that 2019 build several times over the last 8 to 10 months, and we think we've worked all of the issues out of it. But of course, we'll want our QA team to really hammer on that before we put that in you guys and everyone else's hands. But it should be no big deal once we got our processing architecture set up for it. Yeah, the 2017, 2018 jump. Carson saying there's a lot of other people who had a hard time making that. It was just a fundamental shift. They changed everything, and none of it was backwards compatible. And it's just been a massive, massive, just undertaking for everybody involved. And that's unfortunate, but it's one of those things where part of our platform commitment is, yeah, nightmare is definitely a good word for it. It's one of those things where part of our platform commitment is we don't want to break content, we don't want to deprecate content, and so even though Unity wasn't interested in making things backwards compatible and moving content forward, and all of that, we are, and so we had to make sure that that worked. We couldn't just build a 2018 viewer and say, "Oh, well, anything you uploaded on 2017 is gone now." It's just, we can't do that. So, I think we probably had a harder time of it than anybody, but anybody looking to move from the 2017 2018 code base had a lot of work to. But that and part of it along the way is, like I said, we kept running into things where things were actually broken in Unity's releases as well, so we had to go and get fixes for those. We had to wait for them to fix it, and then they came back with fixes, and we're like, okay, but in the meantime, something else in your releases got broken, so they had to go back and fix those, and that's why we were our current viewers are built on 4.9. One of the fixes we need came out in 420, but then there was something broken in 414, so we couldn't use it, and so we've been waiting in for 424. And we think we're finally there. We've got 424 from Unity, and so we're hoping we're over that hump and we can go get that out and just pretty much run straight into the arms of 2019, which I think is going to be much better all around and has some drastic performance improvement. Yeah, they at some point, it would be nice if they did. Sidearm wonders if Unity will take a page from Microsoft Windows and stop using years as version labels. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason they have to, but it'd be nice. Years can be kind of confusing as version labels, but I guess anything else is just purely arbitrary anyway. So I guess the general answer to that is 2019. We'd like to say before the end of the year, but it's not something we can promise at the moment. We're just gonna really have to see how that goes. Um, Sidearm says, I went to show a client break room for their prospective use. Where should I go to use the correct viewer and log into the correct demo region? You can just go to our break room website, download the viewer from there. That's already pre-configured and is using what the latest version. Just install from there, and it'll automatically drop you in the break room. Preview probably, yeah, because I don't think those installers actually ask. I think if you use those installers, I believe they just install the correct version without asking. But if it does ask, you're gonna wanna use preview because that's the 2B series viewer, not the 1B series viewer, and, you won't get all the functionality in the 1B series viewer. Jamie asks, with new platform underpinnings that Adam's working on, and the viewer will be seeing proper tools and functionality in addition to cool toys or whatever was mentioned. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's coming with 2018. Improvements to the room editor system, improvements to a lot of the underlying code that's involved with the platform as a whole. And there's a lot of stuff in there that is um, we've talked about this before and off and on in tech hours over the last few months. Is there's a lot of stuff that we've been working on, talking about like tools and core functionality and that kind of stuff that is actually in there in 2018 code branch, but will probably be turned off for the first release just because we want to get a first release out that is stable and functional, doesn't break anything, and then we'll start switching on features that we've been working on that are sitting there kind of under the table, but they're there and they just need to be turned on. And so after we get an initial 2018 release out, we're going to be starting to go, okay, can we turn on this tool, make sure that doesn't break anything, put that out. Once we have the 2018 viewer out and the 2017 viewer gone, we can go back to doing regular live viewer pushes, and that's something we're very interested in. Right now, we have a lot of people using our preview viewer, which we would rather they weren't, but we understand. But for what should be production uses, and we want to get away from that. We want to be like, here's our stable viewer, go to the live viewer, and we'll turn on individual features, make sure they're good, push them to the live viewer one at a time as they're in a position to do so, and then that way people won't have to be uh, experiencing us, changing things on the preview viewer all the time. And so we're very interested in getting back to that. We know it's been a long development cycle for the 2B viewer. The 1B viewer, I think the last release of it was like 8 months ago or something like that. And we regret that. We didn't want that to happen. We understand it's been frustrating for everyone that it's been such a long development cycle to jump from 2017 to 2018. But once we do make that jump, then we should be able to start regularly putting out new live viewer updates again. And so those new tools and that new functionality and stuff will come along with those regular live releases after that. Um, okay, so I've just that was the last questions currently in Slido. So just if anybody has any questions that they want answered, feel free to throw them in Slido or the assembly chat. I'm watching both, but Slido is a better guarantee that
Oh,
I'll see it.
it's Sidearm here. I want to follow up on what you just mentioned.
Sure.
So we have a live fire exercise. There's special events going on this month that using 1B44 just won't cut it. And so we're letting all the people who haven't been in Science Space for a while know you have to download, and we tell them where to go.
Mhm.
And uh, but at the moment, if you don't go to something staging or whatever, you're automatically, if you pick release, you're going to get 1B44. So
Yep.
we have to say, well, be sure you use the preview. So when you say a lot of people are using preview and we wish they wouldn't, that's kind of not that can't happen right now because we can't get anybody
No,
here.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm not telling people to stop. I'm just saying we're in the unfortunate position where to get the functionality that they need, we do have people using the preview viewer. as more than just a test bed viewer, people using it in more of a production live capacity. And that's not something we're telling you to stop. That's not something we're chastising you for in any way. That's us saying, we unfortunately put people in the position of having to use that viewer, and it's not something that we did on purpose, or that we even really had any control over, because like I said, it's a lot of this delay in the development cycle has been, we're waiting for Unity for this and we're waiting for Unity for that and that sort of thing. So it's I'm not chastising anybody. I'm just saying it's an unfortunate situation that we ended up in with people using, essentially our development viewer for live events, and we want to get away from that situation as fast as possible.
Is it feasible to, and I'm picking up what Karsten just typed there. Where did he type it? He just disappeared. Or no, it's Gabby said it. Is it feasible to just pick one of those thingies? I mean, I have collections 39 through 54 right now, and I know that I'll make a lot. It's like Beanie Babies. I'm holding on to these. But why don't
Maybe
we?
they'll be collectible in the future. Yeah, you never know. But no, there's
Can you just pick one and make it be the release viewer? I mean,
yeah,
none of
no,
them
that,
could
that's
be
that,
as
that's
bad
that's
as
what's going to happen.
144.
Right. No,
But
that's exactly what's going to happen. Is we're
you've
actually
been telling us that for 2 months, Josh.
I understand, but that's what I was saying is like we've been waiting on a particular release from Unity in order to be able to do that. We've been waiting on bug fixes from Unity, and part of that is like they told us like, oh, it's gonna be ready in this date, and then it wasn't, and then and it's one of those things where like we cannot put out the 2018 viewer until we had 4.24, which we have as of this week. So we actually have that build. We have QB54 that's currently under testing, and with our QA team, and we're hoping that that will be able to just go out to live and say this is built on 24. It solves the problems, it solves the crashes, and the broken features that Unity had in previous 2018.4 versions, and then we can just dump 2017 and get away from it. In terms of your collection, like there's no reason to have QB 39 and 42 and 47, and you can uninstall the older 2B viewers as well and get rid of those. Just the latest 2B viewer is really all you would need. Yeah, and sidearms on 54 now. So yeah, that is there might be one or a few little tweaks we need to make there as our QA team goes over it. But um that is essentially going to be our release candidate for going to live. And I take what some people here in the chat are talking about, is even a 2B viewer that has some problems is still a better alternative than the 1B viewer, which has a lot of problems. And we're just because it's so out of date at this point. A lot of content doesn't run on it anymore. And that we are of the same mind. Like if we're not holding 2018 till it's 100% perfect in every way. We just don't want to roll it out and have any significant portion of content be broken, or have it one of the things we were waiting on is there was a crash that was in there that was part of the Unity. It was a Unity bug, and it was just constant crashes. There were some situations where like we can't go to this region because anybody who goes to this particular region, they crash. And so that was one of the very important fixes that we needed. That was in dot 20, and then we found out something else got broken in dot 14, so we couldn't deploy dot 20 until we got dot 24, which fixes the thing that was broken in dot 14. And it's just been ongoing, us banging our heads on the desk. But we absolutely hear you. It's like give us a 99% 2B viewer instead of the 1B viewer, and everybody's and then we'll go from there. And that's absolutely what we're going to be doing. Like I said, it's not even going to have all the features in it that we want. There's a lot of new features that we've been working on in the initial version. We just want to get it out there and get away from 2017, and then we can start turning those extra things on. Yeah, yeah, it's high time 1B44 got a proper burial. We should have like a send-off party. Can we have like an Irish wake for 1B44? Somebody should put that together. It'd be great. I'd go. Yeah. Yeah, we should totally have a send-off party for the 2017 1B viewers. Just goodbye. I'm sure we can come up with a great playlist for that. Les says, "Give me a release date. I'll make it happen." Yeah, we'll have to do that.
We'll do chicken barbecue.
Yeah, hey, I want some
Hey,
barbecue.
don't talk about my chicken.
That's right.
Very sensitive. my chicken.
Yeah. Don't talk about eating the chicken. But I mean, if you are gonna eat it, barbecue is the way to go. Is what I'm saying.
How many
Yeah.
closer, and you will be plucked and barbecued.
Let's see. We got a couple more questions here, I think. Sidearm says there's still some isolated shop items like the infamous blue jacket that freezes a user in outfit mode on 2B viewers. Yeah, I believe we still have an open issue for that. But yeah, finding those rogue instances, tracking them down, that's one of those things. It's like, we don't want to break content, and that's why one of the reasons we've been holding, in addition to the Unity bugs, we've been holding 2018 until we could be reasonably sure that, we could put it out there and most content would still work. There may be a few isolated items like that that's like, okay, there's something wrong with this particular jacket that breaks 2018 for some reason. And that one jacket is not something that's going to hold up the 2018 release. That's something that we would continue to work on. But we're not going to hold up the entire viewer because that one jacket is broken. That's what goes back to one of those things. Like there's so many of these weird little edge cases and stuff like that where 2017 to 2018, it was such a change, it was such a big difference that a jacket doesn't work. Why? Well, we'll have to dig into that specific jacket and figure out what little tiny thing is different about this jacket that 2018 doesn't like, but 2017 is fine with. Little tiny changes like that.
I did mention this at the buzz earlier on, but if you do come across any of those outfits that cause the Blue Man Group, if you could let one of us know, because I think you'll find that most of the community team doesn't have every single item in their inventory.
Yeah, yeah, we don't give the community team that big of a budget. But yeah, it's if there are specific items, I know a lot of them have already been submitted as issues. And if you find any, feel free to bring them up. And if they're not already issues, we can add them as an issue. But like I said, that's not going to be a blocking issue for the 2018 viewer. A specific broken jacket, we're not going to hold it back for that or whatever. So that's going to be an ongoing thing, us tracking down those little tiny edge cases, and figuring out what's different about that and how we can adapt it, or whether we just need to update that particular jacket, or whatever the solution may be. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
yeah,
that
the blue
outfit
jacket
I
is separate
think
from
is the one that jacket you were mentioning there, Karsten. I think is the one that I put up on issues already.
yeah. That's something that it is a serious issue, but again, it's that one jacket, so we want to fix that, but we don't. So that's if that's not fixed by the time we're ready to deploy 2018, it's not going to be something that holds 2018 back. That kind of thing is something we'll just continue to work on.
Just to add Karsten's comment, we tested that again this morning. One of our folks at the Buzz had on the Fractal T-shirt, and everyone was blue stripes. And then he was generously willing, because he didn't know it was a problem. He changed his shirt, and click, 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 click. All of us immediately resolved into full avatars. So Karsten, that's the one that he's logged there. So we now have
Yeah.
2 rogue items, and Jay was there, so he knows about it.
Okay, great. So having 2 rogue items might actually make it easier to track down, but except hopefully that's something we'll have fixed by 2018 going out. That's something our QA team will be looking at is these kinds of issues. But we like I said, that if it's just like nobody can wear this fractal shirt in 2018 until we fix that. Then we'll probably still go ahead and deploy. But the fact that it keeps everyone from rendering if somebody's wearing it makes it a higher priority issue than just that one person having it. Yeah, that's the thing is the reason why this shirt doesn't work versus the reason why the jacket doesn't work might not even be the same reason. That's something we have to take a close look at and go like, is this even the same bug? It's just tiny little weird edge cases all over the place, and that's a lot of what we've been chasing down. Is like this worked fine in 2017. We have to figure out why this one shirt doesn't work in 2018. What's specific about this one shirt that 2018 explodes on. It was such a huge change, and that's why it's been such a long development cycle. Yeah, the bug chasing is just crazy, but that is one of the reasons, like I mentioned at the top, is that um, we're looking at like doubling and tripling the size of our team, especially the development team, because we need more resources to put behind, tracking down these kinds of issues. Like there's this one shirt, give it to a developer, like this is your job today. Go figure out why this one shirt breaks, breaks 2018. And So hopefully with more developers on the team, we can chase after more of these little tiny cases instead of having to prioritize the bigger, more general bugs. I don't know. Does it beat storm chasing? Storm chasing is kind of great. I might like to go storm chasing instead of bug chasing some days. Let's see. More questions in Slido. Let's see what we can get to here. Um, Answered that one. And my request for status updates for minor fixes and minor feature updates. Some specific examples: allow scroll up in chat to read. I don't think anybody's actively looked at that issue since last week. Um, Adding search to the top level of the shop. I don't. If it's not in 2B54, then I don't think anybody has actively worked on that at the moment. Like I said, bigger, more general fish to fry. So those kind of things. It's why we're expanding our developer team. Is the people we have on our team right now. We have a lot of stuff that we need to do. We have more stuff that we can do in a reasonable time frame, and so things get prioritized. And things like adding a search bar to the top of the shop, something we really want to do for user experience reasons, but it's not necessarily the highest priority item, and so it falls down the list, and something higher priority gets picked up instead. So, like I said, we are expanding the development team, and hopefully that'll allow us to tackle some of these quality of life issues more rapidly, instead of all of our development energy going into bug fixing and platform stuff and that kind of thing. That the core functionality, because the quality of life stuff really is important as well, just in the general usability of the platform. It's great that the shop works, but if people have trouble finding stuff in it, then is it really serving it's really serving its function? And that's it's something we're keenly aware of. Again, it's just a matter of prioritizing. It's like, okay, well, what am I doing today? I'm bug fixing, not doing quality of life stuff, and so more development resources coming. Yeah, same question from Rob about the scrolling back up. When you try to scroll up to read and a new message comes in, it jumps back down. That's what we were just talking about. So same answer there. Other question. Oh, thank you for being able to close chat with the X button now in 2B54 anyway. Yeah, that was supposed to be there. There was an issue for a while where pressing the X button would close tabs instead of the whole window, and somewhere in the working on that, the functionality got changed, so it just didn't do that anymore. So I think that's finally been put back now. Yeah. So many tabs. Yeah, we do still want to have a way to close tabs, but we had a problem where people were closing tabs accidentally and then not being able to get them back. And then, like they'd close global and they're like, oh, how do I get global back? So we need a solution for that that's different than just not letting them close it in the first place. Like, you should be able to curate the tabs that you have open if you want to. But we have to put in a user-friendly, obvious way of getting back, tabs that you closed and decided you actually want open after all, like global and new user and, all of those kind of like default system channels and region channels. More quality of life stuff that's on the to-do list, but pending developer resources. Uh, so another question, what does the QA new item approving team use to test if an item is fully viewer compatible before going to the shop? Special viewer diagnostics or other stuff. Generally, the QA team um, makes sure that it works in whatever the current viewer version is. Whatever else they're using. We do have some diagnostic testing tools, some like automated testing tools they can use, but also uh, it has to work in the viewer that everybody else is going to be using as well. Or what's the point? So it's kind of a multi-pronged test that happens there. And if there's a specific problem with it that they don't know how to solve or what the issue is, then sometimes developers will look at it, or they'll kick it back to you and say, "This doesn't work. Go figure out why."
We were wondering because we figured the infamous blue jacket and the infamous fractal T-shirt must have been okay at one point, and then whatever
Sure.
viewer,
Yeah,
and
no,
then boom.
they were probably fine back in 2017 because as you noted, like the blue jacket, you can switch to 1B44 and it's fine in 1B44. So those items probably went up, were approved and tested on a 2017 viewer, and then for whatever reason, when those items were reprocessed for 2018, there's something about them that 2018 specifically doesn't like, whereas they're fine on 2017. So it's just going to be a matter of the fact that those were um, approved a while ago, and weren't tested against the 2018 viewer. The 2018 viewer might have been too experimental at the time, or they could be so old that 2018 viewer hadn't even been started if they're from, if those were uploaded a couple years ago or something. It's just I would have to look at the specifics of each one. Yeah, we could add something like a slash show global chat, but that goes back to being not particularly user friendly. Like, having to explain, to new users, oh yeah, if you go to this particular chat tab and you type in this particular command, just so don't mess it up, it has to be underscores instead of spaces, and you have to say it this way, and that's just not user friendly, even if it's sort of functional. So we really need like a proper user interface solution to that. Um, a button somewhere, maybe in the bottom left corner, or maybe a tab that's like always the first tab on the window that you go over there and you've got some buttons where you can reopen standard channels like region and maker and new user and stuff like that. So that's something that our UX team will go through as the resources become available, and we go like, oh, where's the best place to put this? It doesn't add more unnecessary clutter and is easy to find for new users and that sort of thing, and just be intuitive. Then a chat command is useful for some things, but it's not particularly intuitive, especially for new users. Let's see. Kay asks, how will makers be notified if there is a content/viewer issue? Do they just re-upload, etc.? If you mean like, how are they notified if we find content like 2017 content that doesn't go over 2018 um, correctly, um, then our first course there is, can we fix it? Whatever the crash is being caused, it may be something that we can fix as a bug fix for the viewer and put it out there. And then, nothing has to be done. It's just a bug fix. Um, Oftentimes, maybe it's a bug fix in the processing that happens. and or not even sometimes a bug fix, but it might be that we have to write special converters for different bits and pieces from 2017 and basically rewrite them on the fly in a way that 2018 likes it. And in those kind of instances, we just automatically reprocess the broken content under the newly patched processing servers, and again, the creator doesn't have to do anything there. Um, if for some reason we did have to get a hold of a particular creator about a particular product, then we would just reach out to them directly through email or whatever, and liaise with them directly to get that content fixed. But in most cases, it's us fixing it, not the creator fixing it, because our whole platform goal is you upload your content to Sciencebase, and we make it work. And if it worked in 2017, it's our goal for it to work in 2018 and 2019 and 2020, and we want that content that you uploaded, 5 years ago to still work today and 5 years from now. So really, most of that is about us on the backside, making sure that our processing architecture, when we jump major versions, is capable of taking your content and reprocessing it without your intervention in a way that makes it work on newer versions. Let's see what else we got here. Rob says the busy tab in Explorer doesn't always work. Sometimes it doesn't show the assembly as busy, for example. Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not actually even entirely sure what the algorithm is behind that determines whether a region has been marked as busy or not. That's something I'd have to run by our backend services team, just to get to find out, like, hey, what's what determines a busy region here. So there may be that algorithm needs to be tweaked to have its criteria change slightly as to what constitutes a busy region. Right now, there's 3 regions on it. Why they got put on there, I don't know. No, it shows non-featured regions as well, I believe, because it's got 3 regions on there right now. One of them is the Breakroom Campus, for example, which is not on the featured regions list. I don't know if Illuminati is on the featured regions list. I don't see it. So yeah, it's not a featured region issue like the events tab is. There's yeah, none of those are featured regions as far as I can tell. So yeah, the algorithm behind that doesn't care about whether the region's featured or not. It's just we may need to go back and re-examine, what constitutes busy and what gets a region flagged as being busy for showing up on this tab. Yeah, the Welcome Center isn't on there. You'd think that would always be busy, right? So I got something I'll have to go and talk to our backend services team on and see what it is going on back there. What stats it's tracking in order to determine a busy region or not. So that's something I can look into. Ask me the question again next week, and hopefully I'll have an answer for you. Let's see. Is there a separate shop for Breakroom users, and can main grid users upload to it to sell? As a general rule, white label grids can have their own shop. White label, if you have a separate grid from the main grid, you get to decide what's in your shop. There's a lot of variation around that, around how those shops are set up. It's very customizable. Some of them just make main grid content available on their own grid, and they can pick and choose. You want this content and not that content. And if somebody buys something through those white label grid stores that is main grid content, whoever uploaded it to the main grid still gets paid. It's just a normal transaction in that case. They can, of course, upload their own content as well if they want to feature content that's just in their grid store and not on the main grid. There's a lot of ways to customize that. In terms of whether you can upload content to that, that's entirely up to the grid owner. Obviously the Breakroom demo grid is ours, and we control the content that's on there. But in general, It's not the other grids are not free for alls like the main grid is. It's very much like, well, why do you want to upload content to there? Is that something that makes sense for that content to be on that grid? Does the grid owner want it to be there? All that kind of stuff. If you were on another grid and you wanted to contribute content, those grids manage their own review process. We have a main grid review team, but on on other grids, if you're logging into somebody else's grid or uploading content to somebody else's grid, they have their own review team decide what they will and will not allow on their own grids.
Okay, if I could just follow up on that. That actually was simpler than. So what you're saying is, let's say I have sold Mr. XYZ on having an XYZ white label grid, and they say, but what are my avatars going to wear? I can now say, no problem. You can go to the main grid shop, and in your XYZ shop, pick and choose, and through some process, have K Parks, Grass, and Gabby's Avatar Morph, and Karsten's Bandit Jeep, et cetera, all of these makers go into the XYZ shop, and then they can buy that, and the money will flow through the system and get to Gabby and Karsten and so forth.
Yeah. Ultimately, if Karsten uploads his Jeep or whatever, anybody who buys that Jeep, no matter what grid they buy it on or what grid they use it on, they're buying his Jeep and he gets paid for it, just like any other purchase. That's true for all creator content. In any creator content that gets uploaded, we always make sure that it doesn't matter where they get to that content. If somebody acquires that content, then the person who uploaded it gets paid. That's our contractual agreement with you. Is we're not giving away your IP to anybody. If your IP gets in somebody's hands, it's somebody who paid for it. And in terms of like setting up white label grids and stuff like that, like I said, they're actually very customizable, and it's very much like, how do you want this particular grid set up? What's it for? And there's a lot of nuance there, and yes, you can do this, but there's this caveat to it and that sort of thing. So anybody who wants to set up a grid like that, we go through a whole setup process with them that specs it out, and what kind of content do you want on there, and where's that content coming from, and that kind of thing. But yeah, ultimately at the end of the day, creators get paid for their work no matter how. If we even pay people, like if we're using for like promotional items or things like that, like anytime that your content ends up in somebody else's hands, you're getting paid for it. Let's see. More questions coming in. It seems like the featured tab is kind of a dead algorithm, requires manual changes. The featured is not really meant to be an algorithm. It's meant to be a curated list of items. So yeah, it's a manual change. It's we want this region to be on there, and we don't want that region to be on there. The busy and popular tabs are algorithmically driven, but featured tab is specifically meant to be stuff that we as the grid administrators decide that we want to feature, to put up there as something, as a focus of attention. So it's not meant to be algorithmically driven in any way. That was never the intention behind it. It's us showcasing stuff, specific items, specific regions, and that's something that white label grids, again, they can pick and choose whatever they want to showcase on their region, on their grids and stuff as well. But for the main grid, that's us picking and choosing.
The reason I asked that is because when I first came in the beginning of the year, I went to all of the featured regions. Nobody was. I mean, in a convergence, I go there because I'm farming the silver. Somebody's still feeding silver, but I never. One time I saw somebody else there in 6 months, and it's a pretty region, but I'm not sure what they're. Why is it featured? And there's a lot. I don't know. There's so many new things being built all the time. So that's kind of why I asked. Who's the curator? Who has the power to change this list? Who do you got to go to and beg on hand and knee? Add my
Josh?
region.
Yeah.
Josh, may I make a comment?
Sure.
We were discussing that this week, and somebody is working on taking care of talking with Deb about that. So it is already being looked at. Just wanted to let you guys know. Josh doesn't
Yeah,
have
no-
to go and beat anybody on the head. We're already
No,
working
that
on it.
is functionally, at the moment, it's one of those things where one team decides what's on there and then passes it to the other team to actually implement. So like the community team says we want region XYZ on here, and then somebody on the development team flips the right switch in the database. We actually made a change recently where we can probably allow the community team to directly update those featured items. That's something that we'll be talking about, like, who do we put in charge of this specifically? But it's really more about, uh, you know, the primary driver there is the community team, that's going out and looking at cool things, finding things, and saying, hey, we should feature this, and the actual mechanics of flipping the switch to put a region on the featured list is not really, it's not difficult, not important. It's just, somebody has to make a decision about those regions, and primarily at the moment that falls under our like community/marketing teams. And it sounds like that's on their agenda to review, and it's something we should probably shake up on a more regular basis. Is have a more dynamically rotating list of regions. Like, oh, this one's been on here for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. Let's take it off and put something else on there. Um, but again, it's just a matter of let's have a meeting and decide what goes on this list. Let's
That's
see.
great. That's good because I think you're seeing a lot more activity. At least I see a lot more activity in the last 6 months. More regions being built. Cindy just built something brand new. Lots of stuff happening, and we had. Well, it feels like you guys had years to adjust to things, but now you're down to months to adjust to things because of the growth, which is a good thing. But it brings its own challenges.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody right now across the board is seeing, a massive surge in anything that's online right now just because everybody's stuck at home. So there is of course that extra challenge to deal with. Um, but it's mostly a question of manpower. It goes back to what I was saying earlier, is like we're in the process of trying rapidly to expand the team, adding new QA, adding new documentation, technical writers, new developers, new community members, things like that. Community staff members. So it's just a matter of us, ramping up our the number of people we have on the team in order to to continue pushing forward on things, and and continuing to do these quality of life things, like what goes on the featured list this week. That takes hours of somebody or multiple people's time, to go through what are the new regions, which ones are the best, does this one have some cool new innovation that we haven't seen in a region before, and that kind of thing. It just takes hours and hours of people's times to make those decisions, even if it takes 5 minutes to flip the switches. Let's see. Um, Anonymous, somebody asked, somebody was asked in previous meetings for the web browser shop page. Can the featured items page be updated? So it sounds like you're referring to the website, the sign.space website store. In terms of featured content, that right back into the same thing we were just talking about, that bear basically is that we do want to have both the featured panels that's on the website, as well as we have the ability to put featured panels in the shop page in the viewer as well. Not just in, there's a featured panel, but the ability to have other featured subcategories in the other tabs, like a featured clothes, features items in the clothing and that sort of thing. And that's something that we've had for a while and haven't really made good use of because, again, lack of manpower. It takes hours of somebody's time every week to go through the list of items in the store, decide, oh, this is, this week we're going to have this theme for featured items. Now I got to go find 5, 10 things that match that theme, and and they've got to be, tested and vetted and, that kind of stuff. So it's really, again, just comes down to a manpower issue is like, whose desk does that land on where they have to allocate hours a week to going in and updating those featured items list. That's actually something we were working on ramping up earlier in the year before the whole COVID lockdown thing happened, and then the people who were going to be working on that got diverted off onto some other other projects as a result of the COVID lockdown. But we're hoping we can add more people, get those people back into doing back into doing that a lot more of that curation work. And that applies to equally to like the featured tab and the store and other content, blog content. We want to like feature particular wiki articles, and we've talked about things like component of the week or component of the month. Let's sit down and talk about this component and some cool things you can do with it, and that sort of just like featured, curated content, highlighting things. We do absolutely want to get more back into that. It's just again, it's a question of manpower, and that's why we're trying to grow our team as fast as we can here. Let's see, any more questions coming in? Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Sidearm suggests that maybe Delome can make a quick statement about the. I believe there's a new community hour event that's going to be a regular thing as well.
Yes, Tuesdays. Sorry about this last week yesterday, but there was quite a few of us who had been sick over the weekend and hadn't gotten everything together for you guys. But Tuesday, it's on the calendar. So
yeah, so that's something that we've talked before in Tech Hour here, how this is Tech Hour, and often a lot of people have questions that aren't technical questions, but still important questions, and so we're community hour is one step towards, okay, well, here's a different venue where you get more of our time and you can ask questions that aren't necessarily technically related, and get a broader array of topics covered, with more time over the month. And of course, just like Tech Hour, sometimes may have to cancel a particular week for people being sick or conflicting issues or whatever. But we want those to be ongoing events.
also, you will be happy to hear that we have Jaden that's going to be doing some simple, basic tutorials on a number of things. So we'll be doing things specifically for the community and very simple things for the creators. So it's kind of that beginning thing where Josh then takes over and does the more intense things.
Yeah, it's one of those things where manpower wise, again, Jaden's been doing a lot of different things. The community team has a lot of different responsibilities, and we want to give them some more time and some more resources to be able to focus on more things like tutorials and that kind of stuff, which is very important to have out there, which is even separate but related from like the documentation we're putting together, where tutorials and documentation aren't really one-to-one, although they are definitely complementary to each other. And yeah, sorry, was somebody going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that as Dolome said there, apologies for not updating GitHub this week. I was sick as a dog towards the latter part of last week, so I'm playing catch up at the beginning of this week, so I'll try and get something up in the next couple of days.
Not COVID, I hope.
No, not COVID, but it wasn't good, I can tell you.
Well, we don't need
I think
the
that
details.
there's a bunch of you guys there that are suffering from absolute exhaustion from work.
Yeah, well, there is that. Yeah. Just real quickly touching on a couple of short questions that have come in. Carson's wondering if the review team is backed up. There has been a surge of content, so they might be a little bit behind. The review team is again one of the teams that we're looking at. Like, okay, do we need to add more people to the review team? That kind of thing. So if you have content that's waiting, and it seems to be waiting like much longer than usual, let us know, and we can check on the status of that. Uh, where did my page go? There it is. Let's see. So and yeah, I saw Gabby in chat. Is keen for somebody to look into the pool component, which appears to be glitchy, and I believe we talked about in previous weeks. It also needs some new animation overwriter slots added to it. So yeah, that's an update that needs to happen. Um, Unfortunately, a lower priority item than some other stuff we've been working on, which is why nobody's gotten to it yet. But hopefully that can come up soon. I believe there's an issue for it on our issue tracker, so it is on the list to be worked on. I cannot give you a specific ETA on that. So I think that's all of the questions that are currently on there, and we are also 7 minutes over the hour here. So if anybody has any last minute questions, make it quick. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up here and get back to working on stuff.
I just want to do a last minute acknowledgement as usual. Thank you, Josh, for your diplomacy and steady holding these events. And also kudos to the community team, all of you, for adding a new event to offload Josh a bit. I'm sure Josh will be happy. And we're getting our questions ready, guys. Just be ready. And
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
And the last thing is just a reminder, Josh, at some point, the marketing team at one or the other of these events, it'd just be really cool to have a FAQ.
Yeah, we
Q&A,
may
I
give
mean.
them. Yeah, yeah. Well, kind of both sometimes, but yeah, that's something we were talking about, and I don't know which event they would co-opt. A marketing hour isn't something that would be a regular event like community or tech hour. If we decided to do something like that, it would probably be like very occasionally co-opting one of the existing time slots, and I don't know which one that would be. So, but we'll keep you apprised if that's something that we can move forward on.
Part of the community event was going to be the fact that we are going to be asking creators to have like interviews with us and go through how they come up with their clothing, hair, whatever they're making. But it might be a case that we might be able to get the marketing team to do an interview with us at the community hours. But like Josh says, it depends on which one they decide to do it on.
Yeah, and that's an if at this moment, not a win, or we're still not promising that, just because marketing information isn't always something that we can just put out there in the public realm. So it's gonna the top brass has to okay that and figure out what information they're willing to share and whether it makes sense. You know, if they're going to end up saying, I can't tell you that, I can't tell you that, I can't tell you that to all your questions, then there's no point in having it in the first place. So that's still very much an if thing, not a win thing. But we will keep you updated on that if as that discussion continues to happen. So I think that's we're just going to leave it there then. It is 3:09, so we're already about 10 minutes after here. Thank you for everyone for coming to this this later event. Hopefully we want to push this around too much, but sometimes time zone differences mean there's one slot we can do something in, and so everything else has to move around it. So that's what happened this week. But anyway, thank you all for coming. Thank you for continuing to bring us questions. And if you remember that there's community hour now, so if you have non-tech related questions, you can take those to community hour, especially anything related to like that curating and highlighting and general community interaction and community events and and that sort of thing. Community support, that'd be a great place for that. And hopefully we'll be able to in the future have more of these topically focused hours to address questions on, because the more information we can get out there, the better, as far as we're concerned. So have a great week, everyone, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you all at the normal time next week.